I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast, episode number 183. This one's with Stephanie Untz, and it's about painting and murals. Although, like always, we go kind of all over the place. I've known Steph for quite a long time, and it's great to finally get her on the podcast. If you'd like to know more about her work, her website is stephuntz.com, STEPHUNTZ.com, and you can follow along her painting and mural work at Paint and Grain on Instagram, spelled exactly how it sounds. Yeah, I appreciate Steph for being on. It was a lot of fun. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at Feral Giant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. Where are you originally from?
I'm originally from Louisville, Texas. It's just north of Dallas and Fort Worth.
Okay.
It's a very it used to be a very kind of Friday Night Lights sort of football town. We were the Fighting Farmers and grew up in a very diverse school though, pretty mixed race, black, white, Asian. I mean, that just the Dallas Fort Worth area is a pretty good mix of that kind of different people from all over. And but still very football is life. And I was in marching band and drumline, and all of that whole thing is boys take you to the Sonic to get a drink and stuff like that. So yeah.
What is it? What's the Varsity Blues? That one's terrible, but yeah.
There's a little bit of that, I'm sure. I have had some friends that were cheerleaders and things. I'm sure there was some of that.
So what did your parents do for a living?
They're both. So my dad was insurance, but they were both teachers at the end. They were teachers in the beginning. And then my dad went back to teaching when he was he's crazy. So I think he was already in his 60s when he went back to teaching again, which was kind of crazy.
What did they teach?
My mom was a music teacher for almost my whole life, elementary school. And then she stopped teaching around my sister and I were really little. I have an older sister, but my dad was in insurance and he loved it. He worked in Dallas and stuff and just sold insurance. And he just likes talking to people and stuff. And then he went back to teaching and he worked at the alternative school, in the district.
Oh yeah.
So he's just a bigger guy. So I feel he's also pretty gentle giant sort of person. And because he's older, I think it was he was very good at that job, because I feel most kids that are having a hard time are gonna listen to a big tall old man. I don't know, so
I found my second career. That's before I got into design. That was what I was on track to be, was an elementary school teacher.
Oh yeah.
Up until
my dad was a principal in Chicago where my parents met, and my mom was a teacher there, but they moved to Texas to get away from the winters and stuff. So Yeah.
Why bought? No, the winters are great up there. You
I
wear
know.
winter
I
shorts, it's all good.
I think it was my mom. I think she was just tired of it. And my dad could go either way. I mean, he lived in like Iowa, Illinois his whole life. So,
Okay. And you said you have one older sister. That's the only sibling you have?
yeah, we're both adopted. So,
Okay.
she's like a little almost 4 years older than me and she lives actually in Maryland. So, she's
Oh,
not too far away. And cuz
okay.
I'm in Philly right now, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like when you were a kid, how long did your parents adopt you when you were little, like young or
Yeah. We
but
were both babies. So, we were
okay.
my sister's closed, so she a closed adoption because it was pretty much how it happened back at that time in the early 80s, and then into like the middle to late 80s, at least in Texas, there was more open adoptions, but they weren't even like the way they are now. It was more just that like my birth mother met my parents
Okay.
when they got me and everything.
Okay.
So I was pretty little because um my birth father had like signed away his rights, so like it was really quick. But usually if you don't know who the father is, then it usually takes a little longer. So like my sister was in foster care for a couple months because they have to like legally make sure, I think they have to like legally try to find the person. But
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, relatively young. So when you were young, you said mom, music, dad, and insurance. Like uh were they encouraging of the arts, or did your mom make you play instruments?
Yes. So I played drums, I played piano, and I wasn't particularly good at it, because it's just like that's just not how my brain works. My sister's really like I practiced and I could memorize something, but it was never really it never really clicked. So I did a little bit of that, and then I did drums in school, and I was okay at that. But I really just did it because we had to play an instrument. Like I think because my mom was a music teacher, she's like, you don't have to play an instrument forever, but like you need to learn something. It was very, I don't even know if she ever said it. It was kind of like going to church. It was like, I don't care where you go to church on Sunday, you just got to go somewhere, like figure it out, you know? So it was kind of like the same thing. But then I definitely went in elementary school, even I was more visually inclined. So like my mom traded me with the art teacher's kids and at our elementary school because I went to the school she taught at, and she would teach me private lessons like shading and like value scales and still life kind of stuff when I was, I don't even know, maybe third grade. And
Oh
then my
wow.
mom would teach her kids piano.
Okay.
um my mom was teaching two kids, so I think she kind of scored in the deal because I think she actually made some money.
Oh
But
my
then
God.
I got lessons, so yeah.
Did you can you think you can still play the drums?
I'm not great. I'm really not.
Okay.
People try to get me to do it, especially if like we're drinking and there's a drum set. But I don't like have the confidence in the
Oh,
moment in that way. Like I think when you're like a musician, I think you're either like you have a confidence because you like, you've worked on the skill and you have that, or there's just something about like you're okay with people like looking at you, or you
yeah.
get lost in it and you don't even notice. Like I think there's varying degrees of that, and I'm just way too aware of like that kind of stuff.
Of people staring at you.
Yeah, like I would memorize something and I would just like go into it, which was like a good exercise and like a good problem solving like skill, and it was good for me, but I never really like enjoyed it in the way like I know musicians that I know now do, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay.
So if that makes sense, I think it does.
Yeah. Do you remember like was there a piece or an artist that kind of made you take notice that made you get more into the visual arts?
Oh, so it was definitely comics. So like I would collect all the Sunday comics, probably to the point of like Fire Hazard, because I had this cabinet that was just like filled with them. My dad didn't know I was like keeping them all. But I was very into Calvin and Hobbes, and I would draw it over and over again. And then into like Peanuts. Like I wrote Charles Schultz a bunch of times. And when we were like in third or fourth grade, I dressed up as an old man for like my biography day because I was being Charles Schultz, which was like kind of silly to think about. My dad sent me that photo a few months ago. So there was that. And like my dad, when I was 10, he actually let me do like a mural on my wall. I had to plan it out and like show that I had a plan. And it had like Ziggy and like Calvin and Hobbes. I'm trying to picture it. Garfield, I was really into Garfield and I would draw him over and over again. And it had, yeah, I'm trying to think who else. Yeah, all the Peanuts. It had like Snoopy and
Okay.
there was a few others. I can't really remember now, but
So comic strips, not comic. What about comic books? Did you get into comic books at all?
so I started reading more comic books when I was in high school, but I never really got into them. I don't know. I feel like a lot of it had to do with like money too, because a lot of my friends that like could go to like comic book stores and buy them and things like they could afford to do that or like they would use their money that way and maybe I just didn't want to. I mean, I had like Calvin and Hobbes like books and things like
Yeah.
that, but graphic novels and like comic books I didn't really get into until I was say like high school and college.
Okay.
So.
Because, well, and it was also because I was really into comic books, the price change was kind of nuts at that point. Because they went from like when I was in middle school being like 75 cents. When I
Mm-hmm.
started middle school, by the time I left middle school, they were like a buck 25,
Yeah, when I
which,
made like $1 an allowance a week or something, and it was
yeah,
like like comic books were more than that. And sometimes people would give me some and I would read them, but I never got like diehard into that in that way. I mean, I did like superheroes, like but that was more like TV shows and stuff, and it was more like Superman mostly.
that was
Um,
going to be my next question. Was cartoons a big thing for you?
It was. I was a big TV sneaker watcher because I was only supposed to watch so much kind of thing. So yeah.
Oh, sneaker. Oh,
Sorry, I would sneak and watch it because I had this little black and white TV in my room that
oh
had a
yeah.
dial because we never had cable. And I think we had cable like when it was like free one time. So I would like people would stay in my room and we'd have guests. So I had the TV in there for that reason. And I wasn't supposed to use it, but I figured out I could plug my headphones into it and I would like watch.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Oh,
so
I lost you for a
you lost
second.
me for a second.
I'm gonna write down 29 minutes.
Okay.
Uh, okay, so you plug. Would you mind just saying you plugged in your
Yeah, I'll say
TV?
so I had this old like knob TV in my room that was black and white, and it was because I had the guest room where people would stay. So I had the TV if someone stayed at our room and I would go and sleep in my sister's room. And but I would sneak, I figured out I could like plug my headphones into it and like watch TV at night when I
Yeah,
was supposed to be sleeping. So I usually would sneak and watch The Simpsons because like I wasn't allowed to watch that. That was really big. And then it was just like anything that was on, just, like the Beverly Hillbillies, like anything that played at
yeah,
night. It was usually stuff like that. But when I got to go to my friend's house, like we would watch like Rocco's Modern Life and like Ren and Stimpy. And like I loved those kind of Nickelodeon cartoons that just didn't have cable. So,
Ren and Stimpy. Still, the thing that is burned in my memory is one of them farted, tied a little string around it, and made it like a balloon that followed him. And
oh, yes,
I was
yes.
like, oh my God,
Like, think
this
about
was
it.
aimed at children. Like, that's
Yes.
insane, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
Beavis and Butthead. Like, I watched Beavis and Butthead, and it was like, okay, okay.
I also was like, it very much felt kind of just like naughty,
Yeah,
in this way that it's just funny to think about
yeah.
now.
Okay, so you get into high school, you're doing the band, and you're taking visual art. Did your high school have a pretty good visual arts program?
Not really. I mean, I had a pretty good art teacher in middle school. That was my favorite. Mr. Brown. He was awesome. And like I did a lot more like sculptural work too then. And he actually was like pushing me to do architecture, which I would have really been interested in as well. I think I feel like maybe this is an excuse, but I definitely didn't see a lot of like women in my life or
Oh,
examples of like women being like an architect or like an engineer or something that like I think I probably could have done because my brain is very much that way. and like my dad taught me to like build really early and like use tools really early. So I think I probably maybe would have went a little more in that direction. And I'm sure I still could, but I think about that sometimes because he very much like had me building like these crazy mazes that I started building, and they were 3D, and stuff like that. But then when I got into school, into high school, it was very band. But I got into making like backdrops. So like marching band in Texas, the drumline, and it's also on the East Coast too. There's these drumline shows you do, and they're a little bit kind of like you march around, but they're also kind of storytelling with the music. So we did like an on the waterfront show, and it very much had like the sailors and sort of a storyline. And we did Les Mis, and it kind of had the music and the storyline. And I did like these crazy floors that were painted that we marched on, and I did these kind of French buildings like that were behind us on the field. And so there was a lot of like art in that way at the time, like more with like band and stuff. So
Okay.
it was sort of like mixing the things together at the time. And then I chose not to do band in college because it just felt like encompassing, and I didn't know. I wanted to like actually like focus on doing art when I got into my
Okay.
undergrad. So
So that was it. When you went off to college, now were your parents very understanding about you going into art school?
yeah, they and I went to Baylor, so it's
Oh,
like I got into Baylor and I got a really good scholarship because like my parents are just teachers. Like I you can go to private school in your state if your parents don't make a lot of money, like you get pretty
okay.
good scholarships. But I also like I applied for a bunch of I'm not I don't feel like I'm a great writer, but I was able to get a few scholarships with some writing, and then I got a big art scholarship too.
Okay.
Um and I probably would have done band if I needed to do it for a scholarship. But I didn't end up having to. So I really liked the program. It was small. And then like the main painter, my professor Umlauf, he's like a painter in Texas. He does these landscapes and stuff. I just really liked how like sculptural and like, um, I don't know, they're like really thick, like giant pieces. Like he's just like this funny old man that's like,
Okay.
I don't know. I liked him when I went to visit the school. And I mean, I feel like you go to school a lot of times because you can afford to go there and it's like a good school because they
Yeah.
give you money. So,
But there's Robin Williams used to always joke about, when he went to theater school, his dad was like, make sure you do something that's also, you can get a job in, like, welding. Like, was
yeah.
it like that for you, where your dad was like, take some business classes
No,
or,
I think that they were like, you're gonna be a teacher. Like I feel like
oh,
it
okay.
was like I don't even know if they ever said it. I feel like it was kind of understood that I would probably just go be an art teacher because like they both taught, and like
Yeah.
they knew that was like a job you could get that was
Yeah.
like not the greatest money, but you can survive at least at that time. Um, and so I think I was always kind of, I never really said, oh, I'm going to go be a teacher, but I think that's kind of what
Oh, okay.
um, the expectation was. And yeah.
Okay. So you went to Baylor. Your was it just art in undergrad is lost on me. Like, is it just like a general art degree, or was there a
Well, there
focus?
is. I have a BFA, so it's a bachelor's in fine arts, and but then you have to choose a discipline.
Okay.
So if you can do just a broad, like a lot of my friends who did art education did a BA, and it's just a broad art degree, and then they do education with it. But I did a BFA, so I had to pick a discipline. So like I did painting and drawing, and then that meant that I took a certain classes to like get that requirement
Okay.
filled. And then I also had to do a show and all of that too at the end.
Did you get to try other things like ceramics or anything to figure out what that focus would be?
Yes, and you had to do a certain amount of all the others at least. And then you could do I did a bunch extra sculpture classes. I did a lot of metal work. I really like welding and that kind of stuff. And I didn't really like wood. I did a couple woodworking classes, but at the time I didn't really like it. I think I just didn't have the patience for it.
Yeah.
I like it a lot more now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. I think I was just, we took metal, and when you like beat metal into the shape you want it, it stays. It
Yeah.
doesn't move. It like it maybe it, I mean it contracts and expands, I mean a little bit, but like it really just stays where you want it. And then I took woodworking class like the next semester, and it was just so frustrating because like in Texas it's so like humid and then dry. In Waco, specifically, it's like humid and then it's really dry and then it's like blah blah blah. And so everything's always like warping. You're always having to think about like your grain. Like it's like I just didn't have the patience for it. Like I even felt the same way. I really liked photography class, but then I
Hmm.
did not have the patience for developing.
Oh yeah. Oh
But I
yeah.
think I would now because
Yeah.
like I look back at it and I was like, oh, that was really enjoyable. I just was just young and like, I don't know, didn't have
Well,
time for that.
it's like you can kind of see on this back wall, see all the CDs,
Uh-huh.
and it's like pieced together uh shelving. I would like to do that as a full like built-ins on that wall. But
Yeah.
the thought of like I can do all the drawing and the laying it out in Illustrator, but the actual doing it on the wall to the measuring and the leveling and all that stuff, I don't have the patience for that. Like
Yeah. I mean,
I,
you might be okay. I mean, I wouldn't think I would have either, but I actually like really like that kind of stuff
yeah.
now. I mean, I still get like mad, like, our house is like
Yeah.
so freaking wonky and old, but it's also like I do like a problem to fix. So I
Yeah.
kind of, I think, um view it more that way now. But
Yeah, it's kind of, as you can see, like all the random thing, like it's kind of out of hand. And I'm like, the piecemeal of it is driving me kind of bonkers.
But that's how you figure out what you actually want. Like you
Yeah,
just like live in the space, you do a bunch of random shelving, and then you're
yeah.
kind of like, oh, I actually like need, I need cabinets on the bottom so I can hide the crap, and then I need like beautiful shelves on top,
Or I've got so many records. It's
Yeah.
like I need to build out more record space in this room
Yeah.
because there's too much for the living room and the hallway and
Yeah.
everywhere else in this house. I'm going to have to come into this room and it's
Get a record shelf. That's what I did for Adam. Like it was like I built him a small record cabinet after we got married, and he didn't have a lot of records at the time because we were in Japan, and I think he put stuff
oh
in
yeah.
storage, and I move out there with not very much. And Adam is my husband for the podcast
Oh
listeners.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
no, it's fine. And I built him this small cabinet, and I love it. It's actually in my studio now because he just outgrew it. I use it like for my printer and I put casters on it, but it's very like mid mod. It had like a sliding door and it was like it was fun. And then we got here and like COVID happens, and it's like fast forward 6 years later, we're in Philly, we're going to stay here. COVID happened. His way of dealing with COVID was to buy records, like to get on Discogs and just like look and
My
like,
brother. My brother.
yes. Oh man, he was like shopping, is online shopping. So it just like grew and grew and grew. And it was the point where we also had books and we didn't really have anywhere to put them. And the girls had toys. So like I ended up like designing a built-in with cabinets and a shelf. And I was gonna build the whole thing. And then we had just had our kitchen cabinets built. And so I asked the guy, because I didn't have a shop then. Now like we have a garage and I have a little shop space. But at the time I was like in the basement working. And so I was like, Joe, hey, I think I'm just gonna get these free like prefab cabinets. They're like this much, but I'm gonna have to cut the backs off, all this stuff. And he's like, oh, okay, I can build them for that, like to what I wanted. So he just built the bottoms for me. And then Adam and I made a platform for him, and then I built the top. And it was
Okay.
nice because then like he has all the space for his records. And so he had 3 shelves that were all double, like a piece of wood and a piece of plywood. So
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably like an inch and a half thick because I don't
Yeah.
want to bow.
Yeah.
And so I made 3 of those thinking, okay, that'll be enough space, because he also puts records away for like seasonal, like Christmas, and
Yeah.
also ones he just doesn't, play that often, but he just like kept buying. So he would like start taking over another shelf because there's 9 shelves. Start taking over another shelf. And then I could like see it going. So I'd have to like take it all down and like put another piece of wood on the bottom of it and like recap it. So now he's at 5 shelves and he's like slowly taking, it's almost filling the fifth shelf. Like my books are like getting edged out. So yeah, it's become a record.
Next time you all come down here, he has to come to my house and look through my records because
Okay. I'm sure
it's
he'll love it.
it is an uncomfortable amount of records.
Yeah,
Like,
he's been calling them down too. Like I feel
yeah,
like once he starts building, like filling the shelving thing has been good because he starts filling a shelf, and then when I take it down to like
yeah,
to reinforce it, he'll kind of start going through them. So for last year, he was actually kind of like going through them in order on the
yeah,
shelf because he was like, oh, like I don't really like this one, and then he put it aside, or he'd be like, this one's kind of crappy. Do I replace it with a better version or do I just like trash it? Because we have a few friends that like play records, but they just have crappy record players. They don't really care. It's like
yeah.
their kids play them and stuff, so they don't really care how it sounds. So we usually just pass them down to them and they
Okay.
tell
Mine
them.
is for years, my dad would just randomly bring me a box of records where he
Yeah.
went to a
Yeah.
yard sale. He's like, "Hey, boy, here you go, boy. I got these for you. This box I got for $5. Here you go. Take these."
That's awesome.
And I finally, at some point, had to call through, and I ended up out at Basement Records in South Knoxville. I just brought him a ton of boxes. He was
Yeah.
like, "What do you want for these?" I was like, "Nothing. Just get
Just
him the
sell
hell
it.
out of my house."
You figure it out.
Yeah, and now it's like I'm going to have to do that again soon because it's
Yeah.
bad. It's bad,
It
but
gets at
it's
it. It's hard to go through them too. Like if
yeah.
it's hard to find the time.
Well, in here in my office is where my stereo is, so I have like records, instrumental records and soundtracks, more records, more records, more records, more records, and all these are cataloged. I
Mhm.
don't want to put them on the good shelves in order until I get listen to them. But
Yeah.
it's also like, holy shit, that's
A lot.
300 records that I need to listen to.
I feel like 3 a day or something.
Yeah, yeah, seriously.
Like that's the only way to get through any
Yeah.
days. Like I'm just gonna do one a day. I'm 3 a day.
I but yeah, it's yeah, Adam can come over. He has to take some with him.
I'm sure he will. He took a bunch from my parents and then he
Yeah.
got a bunch from his dad, but he was better to just kind of take what like with my parents, I feel like he got a little greedy because that was one of the first stops. And then with his dad, he just took a few. We were also in Oregon, so like he had to fly
Yeah.
with them. And then my friend just gave him like a year or so ago all of her dad's records, and it was a pretty good amount. So it did
Yeah.
take him like over a year because he also wanted to clean them before he played them because they
Yeah.
just been sitting for because her dad died like 7 years ago. So they definitely been probably sitting even longer than that. So
There
um,
there was a stack or a box that dad gave me that had some killer records, like the original Rolling Stones, the original Beatles,
yeah.
the original Who, like all that stuff. But man, it looked like that box had been soaked in water. And all of
Yeah.
them are up on my shelves. I'm like, I may eventually just get rid of those. Like,
Yeah.
just give them to somebody, be like, throw away the sleeves, really wipe down the records
Yeah.
themselves. And yeah, same thing. You got a 14-year-old kid, give them these because
Yeah.
they
Just
can wear
mess
that out.
around with them and
Yeah.
they could like do whatever to him. Like he was doing the glue trick at one point.
Oh
Like I was
no.
getting him a big gallon of it's a one of the wood glues that I use. I think it's I can like see the package right now. But it's the he would actually like put wood glue on the top and you let it dry and then you peel it off and it like lifts all the dirt out of
Oh
it.
my God.
There was
Okay.
like points where he just had records like all over the surfaces in our dining room. And we do not live in a very large house with two children. So it's ridiculous.
That's awesome.
But he eventually found the one. There's this company, I think it's in Austin. It's a US company
Okay.
where it's this like yellow kind of trough and it has these little wheels inside it, and you actually make this solution in it and you spin it.
Okay.
And it does just as good of a job. So he does that now.
Okay. Oh my God.
Um,
Here we go. I gotta get off of talking about records.
he's pretty dorky. I also don't love talking about myself, so I end up talking about my husband a lot. And he's like, why don't you just talk about yourself? Like
Yeah.
I just feel uncomfortable about
Oh,
it.
you're
Easier to
fine.
talk about you.
So you went to Baylor.
Yeah.
What'd you say your major was again?
It was painting and drawing.
Paint
So
and drawing. Okay. What made you kind of settle on that?
I think it was so I my plan was to go there and do painting and drawing, and then I was actually gonna try to minor in like theater design or something because I was doing all those things for marching band. And I was actually talking about this a few days ago that I kind of forgot about that, and it's something to think about now because I'm thinking about murals and just like I like making art that people actually use and get to see and enjoy and not I mean like it's fine to make stuff that's in people's homes, but I like it when like more people get to enjoy it. And not that I want to be like, look at me, look at this awesome thing, everybody look how great. It's more that I just am like, what's the point of making art if people aren't actually like enjoying it and getting some
Yeah.
joy out of it or using it or like being like I think that's why I like woodworking, like making an object that's like useful that like bring makes your life a little easier, but it's also like nice to look at, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like those kind of things. And I was talking about how I was gonna do a minor in like theater design, and I went to the theater department and I was gonna do it, but there was all these hoops to jump through to get because it wasn't something anyone had ever tried to do. They like you just went to school for theater design, but I
Oh.
wanted to like do my MFA and I wanted to take some classes like for my electives or for extra.
Mhm.
And I also didn't realize like because I worked on a couple like kids theater productions in my town, but I didn't really work in the theater department in my high school. So I didn't realize just how like this is going to sound like I'm judging theater kids, but like it was just so clicky
Mhm.
and they seemed so like not open to someone not just like doing it how they thought it should be done. And they're like, well, if you want to do this, then why don't you just make that your major? And I was like, well, because I also want to become like a really proficient painter. And like that's really important to me as well. And I also would like to take other art courses so that I can, have more skills,
Yeah.
so I ended up not pursuing it. And I do kind of I hadn't thought about it until like somewhat recently. I kind of wish I would have um
Well,
I don't know. I was young too. I was like
I was going to
19.
say that was what I was going to say is it's also the weird thing of when you're an adult, when you're older and you're just like, yeah, I was also a kid. I wanted to try a lot of things. I didn't
Yeah.
want to necessarily have to be beholden to one damn thing.
Yeah.
And it's weird that kids your age would be like, no, 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 you've got to do this. Like how
Yeah.
odd that is. Oh,
Hmm. Well, and I think I always felt very like I was in so many things in high school. And I think there was a part of me that was trying to just like focus on one thing and like do it well because
yeah.
I was in like a bunch of stuff in high school because I just like, you know,
Although that with me, that was the saving grace of how I was able to do well at one thing because anytime I got bored with it, I would do something else. I
yeah,
would learn
yeah,
photography or videography or marketing because I would
yeah.
just be like, I'm good with design. I need to figure something else
I
out.
need to figure.
Because
I know I'm like
yeah,
that too. I get bored so easily. But it's like it's the ADHD.
yeah. my my buddy George and I, we went to Asheville the other night for a show, and he was like, I think I might have to get, some medicine or something to help with ADHD. I was like, dude, I just figured out how to make it work for me, man. I don't
Yeah,
know what to tell you.
yeah.
That and the
Well,
OCD. You just
yeah,
I got a lot of years in dealing with it. So I'm like, okay, I know
yeah.
how to make it work.
Well, that's like I made it work until I had my
Oh
two
yeah.
children. So like, um, yeah, it's just interesting.
I
Like,
was going to say he also has a kid and a wife. I realize I come from it from a place of like it only affects me. So
yeah, it is. I mean, it is like a superpower. So my husband is very different. Our partner's very different, and he would say things like, how did you come to that?" Or like, what are you saying? And I always like kind of took it, a lot of times I take it very defensively, like, oh, like, oh, you think I'm, stupid or whatever. But I've realized in the last year or so that he's just like, his brain is just so different than mine that he just like wants to get it. He's like, well, how, like, how did we get here in the conversation? He's just like dumbfounded by
Yeah.
my path sometimes.
Oh yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's the funny thing about doing this podcast. I forgot one of the other rules or things at the beginning that I usually say is, don't worry if we get off topic. I'll get us back. I'll
Yeah.
remember where we were at. And
Yeah.
there have been there was one episode with one of my buddies that we would get off on some tangent so far down the other way.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, so you're at Carnegie Mellon. And he would just be like, how the hell?
We're back.
I was like, you just got to trust me, man. I will get us back there.
We're on the journey. We're on the
Yeah.
journey.
So, and showing how I can do that, you were at Baylor and then you graduated. So, did you immediately go to get your MFA or what was
So
the next step?
so in undergrad, I can't perfectly remember, but I think I was always just gonna go and try to be a teacher or whatever. And
Okay.
there was a point when I was like a junior and I was starting to take my upper level painting classes and my printmaking. I did a lot of printmaking too. That was
Oh.
I would say I took the most classes in both of those. And then my professor was like, I think you can get into grad school. Like, I think you should apply to grad school. And I was like, what? And because I didn't really think of doing that. It wasn't really I don't know. My dad has a master's, but like we never talked about it. And his was more, I think, to become a principal because it was like
Mm.
administration and stuff. But I'm like, okay, well, that's, and so then I, sort of started talking to some other people, my other professors, and they're like, yeah, I think you could do it. And like, make a body of work and see how it goes. And so I did that and I applied to school and I didn't, it's also one of those things where knowing more now, most people go to graduate school like not right away. They
Mhm.
like take some time. And so I applied to a lot. I got I think 7 or 8 schools. I got some nice letters that were very much like, we like your work if you want to reapply in a few years, because that's like what we're looking for. And then I got into the museum school in Boston, but I got into their post baccalaureate program. So it's just like a program that's in between undergrad and graduate school. And a lot of people, it's because they went to school for something else in undergrad, but they want to go into art. And so that they can make a body of work over that year and then they can
Mm.
apply to graduate school, which I think is really interesting. And I my daughters talk about my one daughter talks about being an artist, and I was like, I think that you can do it. I was like, but I really want you to think about other things you really love and enjoy too, because
Mhm.
I think you should go and learn when you're if you decide to go to if you decide to go to um college, like go and take classes in other subjects, because when you're making work, like you're thinking about the things you're interested in, and it would be like the time to learn more about whatever it is that you're interested in, and that will feed your artwork. So it is like you don't have to just be an artist, or I'm like, maybe you want to go to a trade school and then like you
Mhm.
can still make art, like you're like you don't have to go to school for art to be an artist. So
Right.
we talk a lot about that too. And I feel like a lot of my friends in Boston that year went to school for other things and then wanted to get their master's in art, or that was like what they were thinking they were going to do.
Mm.
So that was kind of cool to kind of be around people that had all different interests.
Yeah.
Wanted to be artists.
Okay. Okay. So you applied a bunch of places. Did you end up going to the place in Boston?
I did. I went there for a year.
Okay.
And I really liked it. I worked a lot though because Boston's expensive, and
Yeah.
my parents, it was very much like my dad. I feel like it's going to be embarrassing for him, but my dad was basically like, we have two daughters and we put some money away for you guys for like when you get married or something. And I mean, he didn't say in something. He said when you get married. And so we have this like lump of money for that. If you want to use it to move to Boston, like we'll
Oh,
help you move up. But
okay.
we can't we can't afford to like, support you if you decide to do it. So you
Yeah.
need to figure it out. So I waitressed a lot and lived with two roommates and shared a room and just did what you
What
do
you
when you're
did?
hustling.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
And yeah, I went to school full time and then just waited a lot of tables and at Joe's Bar and Grill.
Joe's Bar and Grill. So
Yeah.
that year that you did that, what I don't mean to sound stupid. What
Oh,
did
you're
you
not.
get? What did you get like a degree or a certificate
You get a
or
certificate. It's not really a
okay.
degree, but then like I got into school a few places and I feel like maybe it was because of that.
Oh, okay.
Um, I got into a bunch of schools that year. And the two that I was thinking of going to was Mass Art, which is the
Mhm.
only state run art school in the country. At least it was then, which is pretty cool. So they actually have a little bit of funding because of that. And I actually almost went there for printmaking. They really liked my prints because I was taking a experimental printmaking class at the museum school where I would like mix all these different printmaking techniques
Okay.
and with art school like they don't necessarily care if you're like if you're doing one if you're just a painter. They just care more about the idea. So you could like your portfolio could have like all kinds of different
Yeah.
things and then you're just talking about how they all go together and like what you're trying to say. So they don't really care. Whereas like and maybe it might be different with some universities, but like with Tennessee, it's like I applied to the painting and drawing department.
Okay.
So there wasn't a chance for like another department to see like that work. But like at Mass Art, they just like look at your portfolio and then they're like, we really like this. They just tell you what they like and why they want you
Okay.
there. So I got a good scholarship there, but then I went to UT in Knoxville and I don't know if you want to ask more questions or I just keep going.
No. Oh God. I was like, wait, where is Knoxville? I don't know. Do you mean Knoxville? Bowl?
Knoxville,
Bowl?
Knoxville,
Okay, so
Knoxville.
that
Well,
was
no, when I say Knoxville, because I grew up,
I'm
grew up
just
in
kidding.
Louisville. So we
Oh,
say Bill, and then
yeah.
it's like it's got the same spelling, but then people do, they're like Knoxville, and I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, Knoxville. I just say Knoxville because Louisville,
Oh, I'm just
you
picking
know?
on you. I'm just picking on you.
No, no,
But that was
it's
right.
totally a thing.
You went to UT right after that year, that baccalaureate program.
I did, and I will say that I didn't want to leave Boston because I moved with my two best friends from Texas to Boston.
Oh,
And I
okay.
lived in an apartment with them. One is from the North Shore, so she's from Boston, but she went to Baylor. And the other one is from the Dallas area. And we were best friends. Catherine, she's a
Mm.
painter. And we lived in this apartment. And it was very like Broad City. I don't know if you've ever watched that show.
Oh
It was
yeah.
like
Oh yeah.
we were living that city girl's life with not a lot of, like they both had a little more money because of their families, but I was definitely not.
Yeah.
And it was fun. We had a really good time. And I really didn't want to leave because I didn't want to leave them. But when I visited Knoxville, um, I stayed with Heather Hartman. She's a grad student. Um,
Did you know anybody here
I
when you
didn't
came?
know
Okay.
anybody. And I forget. Oh, so I applied to UT because there was a guy that had gone to the museum school that I didn't know, but my professors knew him and he had just I can't think of his name right now. It's like something Kuhn. I can't think of his first name. I only
Okay.
met him a couple times. But he had gone to UT and he really liked it. And they were like, they have a really good printmaking program, and like your prints are really good, but also like their painting program is really good too.
Mm.
So I looked at the professors and I liked their work and I just applied. Also because you always just you want to have a couple schools that are maybe not what you are totally set on. And um, so I applied and I came to visit and I stayed with Heather and I met a bunch of people. Like I met Rob Matt. I don't know if you ever knew Rob Matt.
Rob Matt was my neighbor for a little bit.
Yeah. I met
When,
Rob Matt and I totally
yeah.
had like a crush on him too, like at that time. And like I can tell him that it doesn't matter. And but it was like that. And then it was that feeling of just going, like I grew up in Texas. It's like, yeah, it's a suburb of Dallas, but it's like I grew up with like Texas people are Southern people. Like just a different
Yeah.
kind of Southern people, but it's still Southern. And I think I was just like a little over Boston. Like I love Boston because people are really funny there. There's something about people there. They're a trip and like once you're in, they will like curse someone out on the bus like that looks at you wrong if they're like your people. So it's like there is something about that place and that accent and all of that kind of stuff. And like I'm a this old house like kid too. So it was like, I loved Boston, but I get to Tennessee and it's like the first night we go over to Allison Oak's house. What's her name now? She's married to Justin. Allison Carell. I don't know if you know her.
Mhm.
Um, but they lived in Park Ridge across from Rob Matt. And we went over to their house. Everyone was just like playing instruments. We're sitting on the porch,
Oh, yeah.
like drinking beer, past like trying. That was like when moonshine, you couldn't buy moonshine. So people were still like making it into their tubs.
Yeah.
And, we were trying moonshine. And I'm like, I just miss like, not that it's like simpler, but I just miss sort of the ease and like the sort
Laid
of,
back. It's more
yeah,
laid back.
the laid back and just,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it's like I could just like breathe for a second,
Yeah.
and I went there and I was like, oh, I really like it. And I met a bunch of the professors because there was like a party, but I didn't have like a good scholarship there.
Oh,
Because like I was like on the wait list to teach, but I was like, so I didn't know what I was gonna do. So I actually loved it. I flew back, I think a red eye or something, and I went to bed when I got back in the morning. And I woke up at like 10 that morning, and the professor that had hosted me, he was like, the person that ahead of you is going to go somewhere else, is going to like Cranbrook or
mm,
something. You can have the scholarship, it's full ride, you'll teach, and then we give you a stipend. And I was like, what? Because I had just like, as I had taken like a red eye, whatever. And so but I also just, it was still a hard decision because I was like leaving my friends. My friend Catherine got into mass art, but she got into a different program than me. So I don't know. It was a hard decision because of that. But like again, like I had to make it based on money, but also just going to Knoxville, it just felt um I don't know, I just didn't have to like hustle in the same way,
yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Boston is, uh, yeah. I was just up there to see the Bananas play at Fenway Park,
Fun.
and it was,
I love
I
that.
don't know, it was just wild being up there. Like Knoxville's, of course, much bigger now, but it's just still kind of like
Yeah.
Boston is just a very loud city.
Well, and Boston's like a small city though, because it's
Yeah.
crazy. Like I I remember thinking how big it was, and then I remember having a friend visit like a couple months after I lived there, and we walked like a lot of the city.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
we did take some public transportation, but she was just like, "Oh, we're in Cambridge," and a lot of times like I would take the train or something and not really realize like where I was, and it was like, oh, actually things are, like I rode on my friend's motorcycle and I'm like, oh, I actually like we just saw all of the river, and we were like in Cambridge, we were here, like it was a lot smaller than I realized
So you know
once.
what city that is for me? San Francisco. San Francisco
Yeah.
has great public transport, but every time I've been out there, it's like, no, it's just enjoyable to walk it because it's
Yeah.
not that bad. And
Yeah.
then, yeah, uh, I have to tell a funny Rob Matt story that's going
Yeah.
to sound braggy, but I don't mean it to. But
That's okay.
my house next door, I think you all have been here
Oh,
before.
I did know that he lived by you for a second. I
Yeah.
remember now. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think you and Adam had been here for a party or something. God knows, a cookout
Was
or
it your
something.
house or Rob Matt's house?
I think my house.
Okay.
I think maybe. I used to throw a lot more parties. I have one of the times Michaela's brother came and drank a garbage bag full of beer.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Because he was such a
Oh my
nice
God.
guy. Oh my God. He and I had a great
He is a
time.
trip.
But it was funny at the end. It was almost like a garbage bag full of empty cans. I was like,
Yeah, yeah.
dude, you're maybe the only person that can outdrink me. That's awesome,
Yeah.
man. I want to hang
Well,
with you.
those helicopter guys, you gotta watch out.
Yeah. But Rob Matt, and I can't remember what his roommate's name was. She
I
had a
don't remember either. I can picture the face, but
she had a very southern accent.
oh, Brina. It was Brina.
Brina. I was going to say Trina, but Brina.
It was Brina. It was Brina.
They both liked me, but my buddy George had moved downtown for like a year or two, and he rented it out to Rob, Matt, and Brina.
Mhm.
And uh, got out of my car and saw them walking around. So of course it's me, and I can talk to a wall. So I went up and I was like, "Hey, how y'all doing? I'm Jody. I live right here." And
Yeah.
she's up on the porch, like wine in hand, already a little drunk. And
Yeah, yeah.
he shook my hand. He was like, "Hey, I'm Rob Manny." We start talking, and he said, I can't remember if it's him or her, said, "We hear you're the party house." And I was like,
That sounds like Brina.
I'll keep it. Oh, I think it was her. And I was like, "I'll keep it down." And he was like, "No, no, no, we're good with that. We're good with that. Just
Yeah,
invite
yeah.
us." And I was like, this is hilarious. And
Yeah.
then she would sit down on the front porch and drink her wine and complain about our neighbors. And
Yeah.
then they would come bug her. So she would come over to my front porch and
Yeah.
hang out on my front porch. Like
That's so funny.
it was, yeah, Rob Matt. I haven't seen him in forever.
He
I would,
lives in Oregon now.
oh, well, that's why. Okay.
He would be good on the podcast. Brina would be really good too. She lives in Nashville and
Yeah.
she's an art teacher, but she's been making this really cool text art that's like
Oh,
quilts and
okay.
fabric pieces. I'll send you her Instagram. I'll just share it with you because she's actually been posting a lot and I'm really excited because I think she was teaching so much and didn't really have the chance, especially COVID made teaching harder. And then she sort of came out of COVID and just started like showing work again.
Yeah.
And I would say she's like a really inspiration to me a lot of times when I'm
Okay.
kind of like digging my way out of like a parenting hole, but I feel like she was digging her way out of like a teaching during COVID hole and making
Well, I
artwork.
remember when they moved out, I think she moved out before him, that she moved in with like a boyfriend in Nashville. So
Yeah.
that's interesting to hear she's still in Nashville. So
Yeah,
that's
she's still
good.
in Nashville, the Airbnb part of their house. I'm pretty sure it's
Oh,
the same guy. He's like super nice to her and they
okay.
have like a lovely little, they're
They
both
were awesome.
real handy and he's a musician and stuff. So
I would probably need to spend 30 minutes before the podcast updating her on the neighbors that she didn't
yeah.
like.
Oh, I'm sure she would love it. And she just has the best accent. Like she's got one of
Oh
my
yeah.
favorite southern accents.
Yeah.
And she's smart as a whip and people don't always
Yeah.
um give her like they very much underestimate her.
Yeah.
I would say majority of the time because I see people do it when they've met her and I'm just like
Yeah.
you're the dummy because she's like,
Yeah.
way
It's well, and it's so funny with him. The first time he said, I'm awful with names.
Mhm.
And it's also a lot of heavy metal shows, so my hearing is not the best. And when
Yeah.
he said Rob Matt, I was like, I'm going to have to ask somebody later what the hell he said, because that's not a name.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then later on, he was like, "Oh no, it is Rob Matt." I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
shit, sorry,
I
man.
think
I'll
his
never."
mom couldn't decide or something. I forget.
Yeah,
He told me the story once, but
but it's one
um,
of those I'll never forget it now because I had to be like, wait, I was like a dog. I was like, "What?
yeah, yeah.
That's
So
not okay."
you should interview him because him and I think they're married now, or
Okay.
maybe they were before. They drove all around the country figuring out where they wanted to live,
Shit. Yeah.
and so I feel like that would be. I haven't seen him since that. I mean, I've like messaged with him,
Yeah.
but they ended up settling in Bend, Oregon,
It
which is really beautiful. So
So I said this on the last podcast. Knoxville is the biggest small town in the world or the
yeah,
smallest big city in the world. Like
yeah,
every time you meet somebody here, even somebody like you who's not from here, can be
yeah.
like already have this network of people. It doesn't take
Yeah.
much here. Yeah. I
doesn't.
can't tell you how many times I've talked to people here and be like, all right, what high school did you go to? When did you graduate? Okay. Oh, I know your brother. You
Yeah, yeah.
know, like,
It's
it's
fun.
so
I
wild.
love it.
Okay. So you came to Knoxville, you met these rat bastard people, Dale and Sean, and
Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
awful. And no,
No, we had a good time. I
yeah.
think I met them my first year. I think it was my first year.
So you didn't know Joachim in Boston.
No, I didn't.
That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. I didn't meet him until, I don't know, would that be 2009, maybe,
Okay.
I would say.
That's
Yeah.
always wild because it was like he, I can't remember his whole buddy that they had the house together that Cassie dated that
Yeah, it's Elam.
Alom. Yeah, I
Yeah.
never met Alom, but it's all these people. It's like, oh, they're all connected to him. Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
And he used to just come through town like a couple times a year.
Yeah,
Joachim would, because
yeah,
Elam lives here. And then Elam would go up there and they had their properties in Boston they would work
yeah,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Joachim, Sean, and I have had a lot of hangouts in the last like 2 or 3 weeks. I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
what's happened in the last 2 or 3 weeks that we would need to get together and talk
Yeah.
about, but something with some orange comb over. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's been a our text threads have been wild.
Oh,
And
I see what you're saying. What has happened in the world? Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, in the
No,
last two.
I'm like just for to survive, I'm like
Oh yeah.
trying. Well, I mean, I read my news in the morning and then I try to like shake it off for the rest of the day.
Well, Alan Sims, who I just had on, he said when it happened, he was like, okay, I'm done with the news. He was like, I used to read the New York Times every morning, no more. And I told him about something Sean did years ago, where it was, he said, I'm no longer going to read the news. I'm going to pick it up from conversations that happen around me. And
Yeah,
so he and I were meeting like once a week to, smoke cigars and hang out.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, do you want to know what's happened? And I would kind of
yeah.
update him. So I was his news for like, I bet 9 months to a year.
Yeah,
Well,
because he doesn't like read the news.
no,
Um,
I think
yeah,
he's gone back to it, but he's gone off of it. He was like, I
yeah.
can't do this anymore. So
Adam, like my husband would read the news every morning. And then was pregnant with Barbara in 2019. And I had her in October. And Trump won what, a few weeks later.
oh no,
Uh,
it's 2016 he won.
sorry. I'm sorry. Let me go back to 2016. Sorry. In
Yeah,
2015, sorry, she's 8. What's wrong
yeah,
with me? Because he became president in 2016, but he won in 20. Wait, no, he won in 2016. Yes. So
yeah.
yeah, I'm like all over the place. But no, so 20, because my other daughter was born in 2019. Because
Oh,
I
okay.
like to be consistent. But yeah, so she was born in October, and then he won like a few weeks later, and he like just couldn't he just like was having the hardest time because
Yeah,
he's like, wait, I have like a wife now, and we just had this baby. And he's like, why aren't you freaking out? And I was like, well, because I have like a 3-week old, and like I
yeah,
just have to keep her alive. Like, I don't
yeah,
even remember what happened yesterday. Like, I don't even know. But I will say this time, I had a little, I kind of didn't, I kind of knew how it was going to end up, but I also had hope because I'm a hopeful person.
yeah,
My husband does not deal well with waiting for answers, and his anxiety is very much manifested in waiting. He does not do well with that. So he freaked out like crazy leading up to the election. I feel like I'm more having a problem after,
yeah.
because I really just hate feeling like, I really hate believing in something and then like being disappointed, I guess.
Well, I
Not that
thought
simple, but that's my
I
simple.
so this was the whole thing that Sean and Joachim and I think we met up maybe the night before the election. And I said, I'm 80% thinking it's going to be tight and she will win, or
Yeah.
there's 20% that thinks that she will just kick the shit out of him and
Yeah.
she will run the table. I never thought it would be how it turned out. And that wasn't even hope. I was like, I'm paying attention to this shit to where
Yeah,
I'm
I
the one
was
in the
reading stuff
text.
too. It's
Yeah.
like,
I'm the one, the text thread going, I don't know that I believe this. Like, I literally think there may be issues. And Sean and Joakim are like, that's just how it was. And I was like, I don't know, man.
yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of tomfoolery going on. And I don't mean to be in the tinfoil hat club, but the numbers are not numbering to me. Like, it's just
Yeah.
weird. Anyway,
I
anyway.
think it's like I got a little. I had friend a Republican that very much I felt like after January 6th
Hmm.
um, had said things like I really want us to be like the Republican Party to be done with him, and had said things. But when I sent a message to a few of those women, and nobody responded to me to say like we're not going to vote for him,
Yeah.
or even like loved sort of my vulnerable um like message to them, I was like, oh, okay, so there's a few white women that probably are going to do this that I know are really smart, but I also know they don't like to read the news and probably aren't,
Yeah.
and they probably, not that their husbands tell them how to vote, but I think a lot of their conversations are probably with their spouse. So
Yeah.
there's that, and they're not going to go seek their own truth because they don't want to complicate their lives, and I'm not giving them like an out,
No.
but I'm like just trying to be like, they don't know her. We're also like, I'm gonna go on some rant, but like women are very much like raised to not always like lift each other up and to feel weirdly threatened by each other. And so I think there was a lot of even just, just very sexist talk from women too, not even just um guys, just because I think that there's a lot of sexism from women too.
Yeah.
And then it's like, so there's that. And then I was walking to Adam went on like 5 walks that night as he's all like spooled up. He gets home and I'm like, it's like 8:30. Oh, the polls close here at 7:30 or 8:30. But whatever it was 30 minutes after they closed. And he gets home from a walk and walks in. And I'm like, can I just walk down to Britt and Crystal's house? Cause like they're just having drinks. Just want to go have them one drink. It's my friends that are two moms that have 3 girls. And I just want to go down there and just have a drink and like get out of the house. He's like, fine. So I start walking down there. It's 2 blocks away. And I pass a Pico station, which is the electrical company, like
Hmm.
substation. It's right by our house. It's like it's the block over. There is a lady in a minivan that's putting up those Trump lower taxes,
Yeah.
Kamala higher prices or something signs. She's putting them up. It's 30 minutes after the polls close. And I wasn't intentionally like poking at her, but it just came out of my mouth. And I walked by and I was like, you know, the election's over, like polls are closed. I wasn't even like, I didn't yell it. I said it very
Yeah.
like, I wasn't actually looking for a fight. She just started screaming at me all crazy and started calling me like a cheater, and how like when she said Trump's already won, have you looked at the news? Like she was like screaming that at me. And I was just like, well, I really hope not. And I was like, why are you putting up the signs though? And she's just like, it's a free country. And I was like, well, it is right now, but maybe it won't be next year. And
Yeah.
I just started like giving it back to her because she just kept, I couldn't even tell half the stuff she was saying to me. But I'm like walking down to their house and I feel like when she said he's already won, I
Yeah.
kind of was like, I think she just told me what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And like that sucks that some like really hateful, terrible woman just like screamed that at me,
Yeah.
because she's probably right, because she's probably been sitting and watching like Fox News and
Yeah.
like, and I just see Fox News in people's windows here, like just walking around. Like
It's
it's
insane. Yeah. I don't, that night.
that's my rant. You don't have to add this in the
Oh no, it'll totally be in there because it deserves to be in there, man. It's,
and
uh,
I want to have the conversations with my friends that are right leaning. Like my sister is very Republican, and she and I talk about it, and we will talk through things thoughtfully and kindly. And she is still a Republican, but she still doesn't vote for Trump
Yeah.
and votes a split ticket. And like, it's not because of me, but I also appreciate that she is willing to have a conversation with
Yeah.
someone else. And I know I'm her sister, but it's like, I don't know. My parents voted for Trump, and probably I feel like that's the worst thing I could say in this place. But I also feel like it's really confusing because I think that they just see it as a means to an end. But like I feel like so many people that I know would never like would never act that way in their life. Like they
Yeah.
would never like choose something terrible for something like possibly good to happen because we're all
So
like Christian people that were raised that way. Like,
here's what I've came to, because you're from Texas, you will totally get this. It's not a man thing. It's not a being a man or a machismo or whatever bullshit thing.
yeah,
But I will say two things, because I've played poker with my dad and my uncle since I was 8. 20 years ago, if you'd mentioned Trump, they would be like, he's that New York Yankee asshole. That's
yeah,
exactly what they would say about him.
yeah,
And then the other thing is, every single one of them, I was like, if someone talked to your mom, your wife, or your daughter or daughters the way he does and the people in his party do, you'd kick the shit out of them. You'd
yeah,
beat them within an inch of their life, but you're
yeah.
still going to vote for that. That's the thing I don't understand.
It
Like,
doesn't make sense.
no.
And I saw this thing. Well, I listened to some podcasts where they interviewed younger people that when younger 20-year-olds
Yeah.
and men and women. And really all I heard was like, because it was about, the gender divide is a lot larger in this, like for younger people in this election. And it just felt like every time these young women were talking, they were like, oh, well, I'm more like someone more like I'm more Republican or I'm on the fence, but I also like, I'm not really just voting for me. I'm also voting for other people to not have
Yeah.
their rights taken away. And then every young man, which like I get, like a lot of these young men were like, my dad got out of high school and he got a job at the factory, and like those jobs aren't there anymore. And I'm like a young kid and I don't really know what to do. And like they just feel like they've been dealt like a crappy card. And like, but it's also like you're basically just saying things aren't easy for you,
Yeah.
so you're only going to think about yourself. Like that's what I'm hearing right now. And
Well,
I guess that is, yeah, you're just going to look out for yourself, which I guess I can't blame you, but damn,
because I still have it pulled up, I'm going to give some numbers here. Uh, where is it? Yep, there it is. So I have one certain section right there pulled up. Here we go. Listeners drink, because I'm going to talk about this again. As someone who grew up in the black neighborhoods, some of the people that have it the hardest are black women.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a racist thing. That's a literal fact thing.
Yeah, it's true.
Black women, 91% voted for Kamala, 77% for Trump. That's the widest margin. I mean, you can kind of see it there.
Yeah,
Like,
it's the widest.
absolutely
crazy.
Insane. And it's like, oh, there's a lot of black women I know that they have it harder than any other person I know in my life.
Yeah.
And yet the little white kid who grows up poor is like, no, I gotta vote for Trump. No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. Not at all. Not at all. The white women thing I'm really struggling with, because the white men, it's 60-37.
What's really sad is like I'm not struggling with it because I know how like
the white women, it's 45-53. The 50 that white women are only 7% away from white men makes me want to vomit. Like, and I know I'm a dude, and I know I'm a, whatever. I have privilege, but it's also like I kind of want to yell and go, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? I don't
Yeah.
know. There's no solve there. Or there is a solve. I don't know what the hell it is, but yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it is either. I think
Yeah.
I think it's like just another reminder you have to just like talk with the people in your life and have conversations with them and just keep doing what you're doing and try not to get jaded. I feel like I had a conversation with my husband last night. We had a date night and we were driving back home and we were kind of getting like heated about like the Trump stuff, mostly because I think he is like his view right now is he's like, I hate how much time
Oh
I've
yeah.
spent thinking about this guy.
Yeah.
And like he would probably love that I'm spending this much time thinking about him. I mean, he didn't say that part, but I'm inserting that Trump would probably love how
Oh
much
yeah. Yeah.
we're all worrying about him. But Adam's just like, I'm just tired of talking about it. And
Yeah.
he's like, I want to still talk about issues and I still want to talk about like things I want to change in our community or in certain states or whatever. But he's like, I kind of just want to refuse right now to talk about him because I just don't want to give him any more of my energy. And I was like, I don't think I'm quite there yet, but I do really like agree with it.
Yep.
And I I want to like keep remembering that. But I also want still kind of want to make some of my friends that I know voted for him like not like make them feel bad. I actually want to like know their thoughts and like
Yeah.
I want to understand. And I think that like the a lot of people on the right think like I think maybe we both see only the bad side. So we just assume the other side doesn't want to listen. But it's like, no, I actually like want I would like to kind of
Yeah.
understand.
If you can find those, like I've got an uncle, bless his heart, who doesn't live here. That'll give away which uncle. I don't want to name it,
Yeah, yeah.
but he and I were sitting at my parents' kitchen table and I made some comment and he was like, but there are trans in the bathroom. I was like, show me one example right now. You have a computer in your pocket.
Yeah.
Show me an example. And he was like, well, I was like, yep, what you just did there. Because if you can't show me an example, then that argument is never going to fly with me.
And you
It's
know why you're scared of that? Because you're scared of men going into women's bathrooms.
yeah,
That's what you're scared of. And like
yeah,
that's the problem. You're scared of the way men are going to treat women.
yeah,
So you're so then why did you elect some person who treats women bad and says
yeah,
bad things about women? Like let that trans woman
yeah.
who is not going to assault another
No,
woman go into a bathroom with other women because she's probably going to get assaulted in the male bathroom
yeah. That
because
is
that's what's happened.
that. So a concern I have had is, on dating apps, there are trans women on dating apps.
Yeah.
And there's part of me, it's like, I am fucking terrified for you. Sorry to keep cussing on this.
It's
but
fine. I'm
but
fine with it.
I was like, I am terrified for you because I'm worried that somebody who's a piece of crap is going to match with you so they can hurt you.
Yeah.
I was like, that scares me. That
Yeah.
actually scares me. A trans woman going into the bathroom with other women does not scare me.
Yes.
Like that scares me.
Yeah.
That thing scares me.
So
I will say, so the one hopeful thing that I'm kind of bummed about is the night before when we met, I was kind of like, think about this. When she wins tomorrow night, we won't have to think about him anymore.
I
I was,
know.
I was like, how great will that? I was like, I think that may be the best part of all of it. And I was like, damn
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
Adam was like in 4 years, like the hope is that there's no way he can run again,
yeah.
and then we can just be done, So
Well, like the day after, not the day after, but the 2 days after I'd come out of my fog, I was kind of like, all right, Dems, you need to start working right now. Like right now. It's 2 days after the election.
yeah,
Who are you gonna run? You need to work your butt off. I
yeah,
have an idea of somebody, and I know he's a white dude, and I know that's not a great thing, but I
yeah,
think Andy Brashear from Kentucky may be a really good bet.
yeah.
He's awesome.
Well, and everybody likes Shapiro here too. Like, but I know that there's like, I don't think he's as broadly loved as he is here, but there's like a lot of Republicans that like him here. So,
I think my problem with Shapiro and Gavin Newsom is they both, anytime I've heard them talk, they kind of feel smug to me.
yeah.
And
When Shapiro talked on Harris's thing, like one of her first rallies, I was like, I always thought he was a better speaker
yeah.
because it wasn't that great, but
Well, you know, the one that a lot of people are saying, but I don't know that he could win is Buttigieg. But I think Buttigieg as a VP could be a very interesting ticket.
yeah,
But
he's
Brashear out of Kentucky, that's,
yeah.
I think if you started working him right now, like, and I hate, you know, he's a white dude and I know whatever, but it's also like you have to win. Like,
Yeah.
you've got, anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
Look at this. Watch this. Won't come full circle.
We'll come back to life.
Yeah. So you're getting your master's at UT. Your start, you was it, did you get enough in aid to not have to work, or did you still have to work a little bit too?
I did some odd jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mostly got enough in aid, and then I took out a little bit of loans and stuff. But
Oh, okay. But you got out because I already know all this, but you got out and you started meeting people and making Knoxville your home.
yes,
And
I really love Knoxville, and I worked a bunch of jobs. Like I painted for Cruise Farm and did a bunch of
yeah,
stuff for them, which was really fun. I waited tables at Chesapeake's for a long time because it just had a good community and of other artists and people that did different things. And then I also worked at Just Ripe, which was
oh yeah.
an old little kind of like I guess like a little restaurant co-op-y sort of
I
grocery
don't know
small.
that I knew you worked there because I would go there because Art Carmichael was in there every day and I knew
Yeah, I
Art.
saw art every day. Paris Whittle worked at the little consignment shop down a few doors down. So she would be in
Yeah.
there when she was so young. She was probably like 16 or
Yeah.
something. She'd probably tell me that that's not true, but
I can
um
still remember those early Cruise Farm paintings you did because they were on like plywood or something.
yeah. I still
Yeah.
do portraits for them for the Pizza
Yeah.
Barn. Like I do a portrait every couple years because they have me paint the managers when they leave.
It would be fun to have the two of them on here, or maybe even Colleen and her dad on here to
Yeah.
talk
Oh,
about
he's a
the,
trip, man.
yeah.
He's so
Uh,
stuff.
just, yeah, that whole, like, Colleen, what was it like building an empire? Started
Yeah.
out of a busted, food truck.
Yeah.
To-
She's great, man. She just goes for it.
yeah.
And then it's like with I feel like I was there when she was really like starting it and she would just do something and then like if it didn't work, then she's like, okay, we're done. Let's go to something else. Like
Yeah.
she just never really let anything like, stop her. She just kept going. So
Okay, this is going to sound awful with my accent. How do you pronounce her husband's name?
Manjeet, I forget his last name right now.
Uh, Bati, Batin, Manjeet, though. That's the word I'm looking for.
I
So
think it's Body, but I've never really said his last name, so I'm not actually sure. But yeah, Manjeet.
the funniest thing about the two of them is I never officially met either one of them before they decided we were friends. Like, like,
That's kind of what Colleen does. That's sort
yeah.
of her thing.
Because I
So
was standing talking. I'll give you another Knoxville name. It was at the Maker City Summit, and she was standing out talking to I think the first year they had one, Jeff Schaffenacher. He was
yeah,
serving coffee, and I walked up, and she was like, and Jeff was like, "Well, you know Jody," and she was like, "Oh yeah," and I was like, "I don't think we've ever met, but okay, that's cool."
yeah,
And now
yeah,
every time I see her, she cannot be more friendly and awesome. And him, Manjeet too. I was
yeah,
going from the ice cream shop to the pizza barn, and he saw me. He was like, "Hey," and I was like,
yeah,
"Again, I don't think I've ever met you, but I
yeah,
love, I love the positivity, man." I was like,
yeah.
"This is," but they
They're just like
probably,
we just act like we know everybody, and then we
I
never
think it's,
fail.
I've also probably bought my weight in ice cream, and
Oh
they've
yeah,
probably
sure.
seen me so
Yeah, yeah,
much. So here, God, I almost want to. I'll talk to you something afterwards. I have an idea, but I want to run it by you and see what you think. I'm going to make a note underneath Rob, Matt, and Brenna's names. Okay, so you're doing your art here. I'm gonna go ahead and skip to like most of your art is physical. Do you do any digital art? Do you do
I
any
do. So I can do like a quick rundown of like I married my husband and moved to Japan,
yeah,
and that's like a whole other podcast story. But we were there for a long time and I actually did a lot of watercolor there for a
because he
long
was, I will say for the listener, he was stationed in Japan.
yes, my husband is a Marine Corps pilot. And so we were in Okinawa and I did a lot of watercolors there. Um, I was there a few years before I got pregnant with our first daughter, Barbara. And and then we decided to move back to the States. So we moved back to the States. My husband got out of the Marine Corps and we moved to Philly and I get pregnant with Lorraine. And I get really sick when I'm pregnant, where like it's like just like a hangover for 3 months. That's like how it feels. Like you're just like you just yeah, you just like you're gonna,
Yeah.
just like a hangover, like a terrible hangover for the first 3 months. And so my husband did buy me an iPad, and then I did do a ton of digital art. And I do a lot of that now when I do murals. So I'm still kind of figuring out the best way to do it, but the last mural I did it all digitally so that I could make like a lot of different versions because
Okay.
it was a place that had a really long history. So there was a lot of different elements that needed to be in it. And I needed to change things. And it also was very collaborative and like with the director and one of the other executives at the nonprofit. So I did it that way, but I think I'm figuring out that it is good for me to physically make the work and then um photograph it and manipulate it
Mhm.
in Procreate, because there's answers that I come to, and uh like there's just a certain like looseness and um more natural like visuals that come from you when I get to physically make something.
Yeah.
I'm like, I can't really find exactly the right words, but I feel like it's much more forced when I start digitally.
Okay.
Um, and I almost like it almost takes me longer. And the whole point is for it to take me faster. So I made a mural for, and I did it digitally for this arboretum. And I was just like, I hate this. And I like told Adam one day, I was like, ah, this design is terrible. And he's like, well, why are you just doing it on the iPad? And I was like, oh, and so then I ended up just like getting spray paint out and like making a bunch of different grounds. And then I painted a little bit and then I photographed it and then I messed around with different things so I could cut
Okay.
out stuff and move things. So I'm kind of figuring that out, but I do use Procreate,
Okay.
especially with mural work.
That's not bad with, because who was it? Oh, I'm trying to remember, when was the last time you were here?
We were only in town briefly this summer.
Okay. There's a mural. I don't, have you seen it? It's on the side of Market Square Garage. It's that big one with all the faces. It's not in the art alley. It's on the alley on the other side of Market Square.
So I briefly saw it. Oh, so I was there when Dale had her show.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I did walk by, but I didn't get a chance to walk down there.
So I had that guy on and he was talking about like mapping out a mural and he was like, well, cinder blocks. He was like,
Yeah.
it's literally a grid. He was like,
Mhm.
that's how I use digital is I, know how many cinder blocks so I can map it out, just even sketches.
Yeah, or
Like,
bricks. Yeah,
yeah,
like any
like
kind of blocking is really
that.
nice.
And he said that really helps on the digital side of all that.
And you can overlay it over your
Yeah.
image, or like a lot of times I've only done this once where I've done like the random you just do like random words or like letters and
Yeah.
symbols, and then you take a picture of that and you overlay it over your design so you can
Yeah.
see sort of where things are, which is
So
kind of
again, because I'm telling you, my ADHD is working for me, or the OCD. You said you did a mural on your wall when you were young,
Mhm.
and then that's a lot of what you're doing now. What led you to doing murals? What made you want to do murals?
I'm trying to think. So I did a mural in Japan. I did that mural when I was a kid. And I guess I was doing the stuff for Colleen.
Yeah.
Like I feel like everything has like a moment where I've done something mural like. I did the mural as a kid, and then I did those backdrops were just
Oh
basically
yeah.
giant flat murals in a way.
Yeah.
And then I did the stuff for Colleen. And like I did their corn maze
Oh
um
yeah.
pictures, and those are really big, and I projected them on the farm. And like I just love, get out the chalk line. I like to do some perspective, I like all that kind of making something big, and you like feel like you're in it. And then I think it's just like I really like murals because anybody can like enjoy them, and
Yeah.
it's a way for people to see art that aren't gonna go to a gallery
Yeah. Okay.
probably ever.
And that
Uh,
was what you once you figured that out, that's what kind of clicked it into place. Like, oh, I want to do this. I want to pursue this avenue.
yeah,
Okay.
and I was following a bunch of artists. Like I really loved like a lot of the San Francisco mural artists
Yeah.
that were in like the skateboard scene. I'm really bad at just names off the top of my head, but there's sort of a 90s like street artist scene that was really big, and I would watch their old videos. And there's this one woman that I love that does these sort of cartoony images. If I remember later, I'll tell you. But
Okay.
she died really young. She had this disease, but her stuff is awesome. And then from her, I just like from those people, I followed more San Francisco people because there was a big like figurative art kind of graffiti scene.
Yeah.
And I followed Andrew Schultz. He was a graffiti artist. He's just a really good painter.
Not
And
not the pile of crap comedian Andrew Schultz. Like
no, not that. Andrew Schultz, the painter.
yeah.
And he it might even be Schultz or not Schultz. I don't remember how to
Yeah.
say his last name, but he actually came out. So like I was on a committee called the Visual Arts Committee at UT, and we brought in speakers. And so it was fun because a lot of times we brought in artists we really liked that we would never have come to Knoxville. So like
Yeah.
I brought out like Chris Johansson. He's part of that San Francisco scene. I think he's in Portland now. And his wife, who's an awesome artist, and her name is escaping me, which I hate. And then I brought Andrew Schultz out, and he was really awesome. And so I was just always drawn to people that, worked with a community to make an art piece. And like my friend Molly Must, she did those murals in Asheville with like the chess players under
Oh
the
yeah.
underpasses and
Yeah.
stuff. We had a short friendship, but I still kind of follow her work. So and Dale knows her too. But yeah, I've always kind of been drawn to that. But there is sort of it's like it's a little intimidating, like doing something like that and figuring out how to get in there, because like I applied for a couple things, and one particularly in Knoxville, and I didn't get it, and which was fine. But I wrote to them to just kind of be like, I feel like the way you guys chose was a little weird and not necessarily fair. Because it kind of seemed like you already knew who you wanted to hire, which I find happens a lot in
Yeah.
mural competitions, is like they already know who they want, which any job, but they just do it to like look like they're on the up and up. But I hate that. I'd rather you just hire the artist that you want, because you're wasting a bunch of other artists' time like applying. And then I find I've applied to numerous things where like they don't even tell you you didn't get it. And it's like, you could at least do that.
Yeah.
And one I applied to before I left Knoxville, the guy wrote me back instead of being like, let's talk about this, like, because he wasn't an artist. He basically just told me that I only cared about myself, and I was just mad because I didn't get the mural. And it really did. It still sits with me because I don't want making art to be like this ego thing, and everything is. But I really like do want to just like have it out there so people can like enjoy it, and also that I get to make art because I do like making art. So there is like a selfish side of it, but it's not so that like I can be like, look how cool I am. And like that's like what he told me. And I was like, okay, man, like sorry. It just really felt like, like we don't need to talk anymore, but like it just felt like this wasn't the most like ethical way to go
So
about.
off mic, can you tell me who that is so I can go talk to him?
No, they don't, he doesn't live there anymore.
Okay.
I can't even remember his name. I'll find it and send it to you, but
Okay.
he worked for like the Mabry house or whatever. But
I will say, so one thing before I forget, I've found one of the best mural cities is St. Petersburg, Florida. It's awesome.
I've seen some of the murals, but I've never been there.
Oh,
Um,
I've only been there once, and we literally just drove from the baseball field to the airport. But damn, like it was
yeah.
so awesome. And I talked to my friends who live down in that area, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's a major part of this town is these
Yeah.
murals." The biggest issue uh with Knoxville right now is I feel like it to what you said is something that's happening now is it's too siloed off in the art worlds. Like you
Mhm.
have these groups that try to own the world, these groups that try to own the scene, these groups, and
Mhm.
they don't work together, they don't talk to one another, they don't. And I was like, man, this is too small of a. Even though we're a bigger city, we're too small of a town to stop working against one another, work together.
Yeah.
Like that's what makes this city great is
Yeah.
how people are willing to do that. So
And that's what made it great. Like, 10 plus years ago when I feel like people didn't like separate themselves quite
no,
as much. I think
no,
there's also just more people now, but
yeah, yeah, that's part of it. Anyway, so do you try to work in any other media? Like, do you try to ever do like photography or do any 3D art like ceramics?
I don't ceramics would be kind of cool again. And I don't really do printmaking
Okay.
anymore either. There is a couple good shops in the city. I live like 25 minutes outside the city, but I do live at the end of the regional line, so like I can take the train into the city, which is nice. Um, yeah, I would like to do some other things. I lately I've been just like painting in my studio, and I actually haven't shared a lot, which is a little different for
Okay.
me. I feel like being a mom, I've used Instagram's been a really good tool, or even just a person that's like lived other places and like has artists that I like in Knoxville or other communities that I like to be a part of. Like Instagram has been a great way to like stay in contact and see what we're all making. And I really like it for that. But sometimes I think we all kind of struggle with like just making stuff for like for the gram or whatever. And so
Content creation versus
content
art
creation.
creation. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know that's like half the art podcasts I listen to are a lot about that. So I think right now I've just been trying to just show up in here um once the girls started school again, like just in the mornings at least to
Yeah.
work. And sometimes I only get like an hour of painting in because I, need to answer a few emails or catch up on whatever. Um, but I think for like I just was like, there's some ideas that I have that don't really have a cut and dry route, or like I don't know what sounds so weird. It's like I'm gonna say like I don't know what they mean, but I don't really know. Like I keep like writing about something, or like it maybe is in like a small watercolor or a sketch, like an idea. And then I'm like, why do I keep coming back to that? But I'm not really making time to like figure that out. And I feel like I would like to enter a couple shows or try to get into like an actual gallery space, or even just try to rent my own space and do my own show. But
Yeah.
I want to actually like think about what I'm actually trying to say. And as much as I want to be someone who sits and writes down like my ideas, I'm like, a lot of it comes to me like while I'm painting or like building something. So I'm just trying to do that right now. And my my husband came in the other day and he's like, "What's this for?" And I was like so annoyed and I was like, "I don't know, like leave me alone," you know?
So that sounds more like how I approach the art that I do, is it's less about wanting people to see it and more about getting it out of my brain. There
Yeah.
are so many pieces that are in my brain that are, it feels like they're clogging up things. So it's like,
Yeah.
I need to do this because it's like I hate saying like a flushing, like it's just
Yeah.
gone because it's done. It's completed. It's a task. It's
Yeah.
done. Whereas there's one show I am eventually going to do. I'm going to try to do it next year. That I don't care if anybody shows up. I don't care. I've
Yeah. Yeah.
just got to get it the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And I've talked about it a lot. That's another drinking game. I've probably talked about it on this podcast too damn much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's just like, well, whenever I decide to start working on it, it will be done in less than a month. But
Yeah.
once it's done, it's like, okay, it's out of me.
Yeah.
I'll never want to paint that kind of style or whatever ever again.
I
It's
just
just the
do it.
hell out of me. So,
Yeah. No, no. I feel like art is a lot of that for me, but also right now with my life of like being so like my husband's a pilot, so he his job is more normal now. He works for Boeing. And so he's still like sometimes it's like, okay, finally the aircraft's ready, he can fly a bunch. But like when he was in the military, he would just leave randomly, which was fine when we didn't have children, because
yeah.
then like I would just go and paint or I would do whatever. I mean, I really just did whatever I wanted. Um, and that was great. And then, but then when you have children, it's like harder because then you end up kind of like single parenting. And I am not a single parent. So that is not, I do not live that life. So I'm not like, woe is me, but it's also just like my brain feels very fractured. And so I feel like a lot of my art making has had these like a bunch of little, like a bunch, like I've just made a bunch of little flowers and like I don't really know why. Or I'm like, I'm making these disco balls. I don't really know why. Like, oh, I built like 3 tables. Like, I don't know. There's these like spurts, and it is probably like very much an ADHD thing because like I wasn't diagnosed until like this last year. So like it's kind of making a lot of it make sense. Um, so I'm right now, I'm like, well, I think I just need to just make something and kind of like go with it, kind of like we're on a journey where we're having this conversation, and I'm pretty sure I'll like come back around
Yeah.
and it'll like kind of make sense.
Yeah.
And I can see even some of the other little elements of things I've been making sort of creeping in. So I think and it's also making me write a little bit because I'm like painting and then I'm like, oh, I gotta write this down. And so I'm kind of going back. I think I'm recognizing that I'm the ADHD person in me is like, I got it out. I'm not gonna go back and look at it like I'm good now. But actually, like it's good for me to go back and like read something I wrote, or I
Yeah.
go back and look at old sketchbooks because I'm like, oh, okay, I already did talk about this. I just thought I
Right.
moved on from it, but I haven't. So
Well, and it's
I'm
the whole thing of done is better than perfect. Like getting it out has it, there is a finality or there is something, and then
yeah.
later on you can come back and clean it up or make it be part of, yeah, be part of something else. Yeah.
So I
Uh,
am a little like up in the air right now, but I do want to do some more murals and stuff.
okay. Uh, is there anything you'd like to see more of in art or creativity in general? Not for you, just in general.
I keep like, I don't know, I worked with a guy when I did this last mural, and I wasn't really supposed to work with another artist, and like he's a good painter and stuff, and like we're very different. Like he's like a Philly artist. I don't know if he's older than me or not. He's a black man. I'm a white lady. Like he grew up here, I grew up in the South. Like we have very different experiences, and he has an older child. I have like young kids. Like we have, so it was like an interesting experience. And I feel like I would love to see more people that are just drastically different have to like make something together and like see what happens, because it was like really good, but also really like frustrating and annoying because you have to communicate with someone that you don't really know and you're very different and your lives are very different. And like, I didn't always like ask the right questions to kind of know like what was going on with him. But then he would be like, I like, he gets off, he couldn't come one time. And then I'm like, do you have a car? And he's like, no. And I was like, dude, I'm coming. I'll just come get you in the morning. And he's like, oh, he's like, you know, after that, I was like, I don't care. I'd rather like just come get you. Like, it's like 6 in the morning. There's no traffic. It's fine. And he like didn't really expect that, but he didn't really want to ask me because like we don't really know each other. Like,
Yeah.
but I feel like it was like really good because I because of like I like I'm mostly around other parents. Like I'm mostly around people that are kind of like me or in a similar socioeconomic world as me now. Like it's different than I don't know. I just don't always get to be around different people. And it's almost like we were forced to like figure it out. And things didn't really always go like perfectly. But then afterwards we could kind of like I made myself like debrief with him and like talk about it, which was like a little uncomfortable. Just like because he just made a comment like, I kind of feel like we're gonna do this again one day. And I was like, do you? Because I feel like it was kind of crazy. And he was like, it was. He's like, but we didn't really know we were gonna work together. And I was like, we didn't. And we like agreed. And it was like, it was good. And I don't know. I wish that there was some way to just make people that are different do something like that. But I feel like I don't know if there's a way to do that.
There is. Yeah.
Instead of and without it being some weird savior thing, like, oh, I'm gonna bring up this person that like
Yeah.
doesn't have it. Like I feel like there's all these things that can get muddled or like be about something else. But I really just feel like it's just good for people to be around
Yeah.
like different people.
Yeah. Never going to get that argument out of me. There was a
But I
period.
think
There was
some
a
people
period.
don't want that.
There was a period, and Dale and Sean were part of this, where it's like, here's what I'm going to do. Every 2 months, this is not a patting on the back or anything, but I was like, I'm going to invite two couples who there's no way in hell they would have ever met one another. And
Yeah.
I will cook the main dish, and they each bring a side, and we will sit in my living room and eat. And I
Yeah.
did it like 3 times. And I was like, this is awesome. Because it would be like one of them was like a couple that was 15 to 20 years older than me with a
Yeah.
younger couple who were newlyweds. And then one of them was like Dale and Sean and Everett and Kate. And it was like,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work. And it was a lot of like trying to get people to be uncomfortable and,
Yeah.
or not uncomfortable.
Not
I'm,
uncomfortable.
I'm going to use a quote, two quotes from my one of my heroes, Kevin Smith. He talks about chasing whimsy a lot. I
Yeah.
wish more people were willing to chase whimsy.
Yeah.
And the other thing he said was find the why not people in your life. The people that when you say, I'm going to invite another couple, I was like, this is just I want two people of disparate
Yeah.
backgrounds to meet and them say, why not? Instead of why? Why would you want to do that?
Or like yes and people. Like it's
Yeah.
like what people
Yeah.
do in I was telling my husband that I was gonna sign him up for an improv class. He's like, oh gosh, that would be my nightmare because it's
Yeah.
like something he would never do. But I'm like, I just think that everybody needs to practice like yes anding other people. Like
Yeah.
I listened to the Handsome podcast. Have
Oh,
you?
yeah.
I love it so much. And it's because they yes and each other. Like it's like they make fun of each other, but then they're like, and then they just keep bouncing off each other. And it's pretty great.
Meg, you know who I'm talking about. Meg and Lance, you knew
Oh
them,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Megan
So,
Lance, yeah.
uh, she fusses at me. I love 2/3 of that podcast. There is one person on that podcast. They are not my cup of tea for whatever
Yeah.
reason. Tig is not my cup of tea for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I
I
love,
mean,
I love Fortune and I love May, but I
Yeah.
have tried like hell with Tig, and I just can't. May
I,
May is the sleeper. May is the one that not many people
yeah.
know about. It's like I watched this British show called Taskmaster,
Oh
and
no, they were so good on it.
oh
Adam
my
and I
god,
are almost caught up. We're on 2 seasons after her. So I think we're on 15.
yeah,
We're
that
on 15
show.
right now. It's so good.
Jesus. The one with, I can't remember their name, Bridget and Judy. The weird white lady who's probably like late 40s, early 50s, wears the big hat. And then
I,
Judy is a black woman that's a little bit larger. Like
yeah. Oh yeah,
Judy,
that was like season 11. So it was like somewhat yeah, Judy was hilarious.
that season is one of my favorite seasons because it
Yeah.
Judy and Bridget is so weird and kooky. And
Yeah.
then Judy would be like, I've got this in the bag, babe.
Yeah,
Like
like the confidence level was like off
I
the
loved her.
charts.
I loved
I
her.
love I loved one of our favorite seasons, and a lot of our friends have stopped on this season, which makes me a little sad. But it's the season with the two people from the British baking
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
show because it's got the woman is so funny. Like we go and watch the scene where she's inside the trash bin, the wheelie bin, and she's like screaming at Hugh. He's pushing her.
Yeah.
She keeps going, you, instead of saying Hugh because she's
Yeah.
like supposed to act like she has like she's speaking another language.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. Like she's so ridiculous. I can't think of
Yeah.
her name right now, but
And,
I love that.
Hugh is the tall, skinny guy who was on Fleabag. Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I will
Who
say,
isn't that? Oh
huh?
yeah,
Yeah.
I just connected that. No, that
Yeah.
show is great. Yeah, I just love that show.
I don't think she's ever been on, but here I'm going to give you, since you like British stuff, do you know who Alison Hammond is?
I think so.
She's she interviews people on their morning show. She's a larger black woman. She interviewed Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford for uh Blade Runner 2049. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life.
Is it a podcast or is
No,
it
it's just she interviewed Harrison Ford and them on camera for like 7 minutes. And
okay?
it is legit one of the funniest things.
I recognize her when
Yeah.
I see her face.
And I will say Greg Davies, I had been a fan of for years because of the Graham Norton show. Anytime he was on Graham Norton, it was a win. Like he's so damn funny.
He's so funny. He was on the show. It's
Where he was the teacher that was kind of
he's like the husband, and his daughter marries like some guy she meets. It's named after, I can't think of what it's called, but he's the dad in it, and he's just so good. He's just so good at being like disgruntled, and like I mean that's like his shtick, so it was a perfect thing for him.
There's also, I will say, there's also like a 28-minute supercut of all the times he was on Graham Norton. Do yourself a favor and watch that, because there is one where he is on there. God, my boy, he's on there with my boy Ryan Gosling. He's on there with Ryan Gosling and
That's great.
Russell Crowe and Jodie Foster. And there's there's a point where Graham was like, "Tell them the story about this," and he was like, "They're cool and telling their Hollywood stories, and I'm telling this story where I look like an idiot." Like, it's so
That's
good.
his thing.
Okay.
I love that. I love that show, and like I would give. I mean, have you watched Tig's like stand up and stuff?
Yeah, I've tried.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Tig. It's just not my thing.
She's also just so dry and just like.
I took my little sister to see Fortune the last time she came here.
I saw Fortune too when she came here.
God. I love her so much. She is so funny.
The show was called Cuckoo, but it wasn't like the best show.
Okay.
It was just
well, there was a show he was on forever that he developed where it was based on his time as a teacher. It was really good. Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'll have to watch that.
And I will tell you, one of the other funny moments with him on Graham Norton is there is a boxer named Anthony Joshua who is the same size as Greg. So he's a big dude, but he's a fighter. So he's a bigger dude. And they square up, like go face to
Yeah.
face. And Greg
Crazy.
unbuttons his jacket and starts bumping his big belly on Anthony. It's the best. And
That's
Anthony
great.
cannot stop laughing. And
Oh,
Greg is just like, huh, you want to go? You want to go?
yeah, yeah.
He just keeps bumping him with his belly.
I want to
It's
go watch
it's the
Taskmaster.
bet. Okay. Is there
Okay, no, so now I want to go watch
yeah.
it.
Is there anyone you would like to work with?
um, I don't know about like so I'm gonna say this on here and maybe it'll make me do something. I would like to figure out how so Philly has a really big mural arts program
Mhm.
and I've applied to a couple other things. They have like some of the most murals of any city here actually.
Okay.
Um in the city and I would like there's a bunch of artists I follow and a few that I've met in passing, but I know a lot of times they just have artists work on the murals and things and like I think I would just like to do that with someone else in charge and just like be their bitch and do some murals for somebody and
Okay.
learn from them and stuff. And I just haven't taken the steps to figure that out. And I'm sure there's a way because like the guy I worked with on the last mural, he worked for Mural Arts like when they first started like over 10 years ago. And he did that. He just like painted on murals for
Okay.
other artists. And I think it's like I just need to stop making excuses and probably figure that out because like I
Okay.
could do it and then if I didn't like it I just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, that's true. Do you ever set goals or a checklist?
So I'm doing that more now where I actually like set a goal. So like when I did the other murals that I've gotten, I made like small steps so that I could get to it. I think I learned more of that with our house because we moved into our house and it was pretty bad. And so I would make like goals of things that I wanted to have done and that I could do myself. And then I have to break everything down to like really small tasks. Um, because I would just put stuff off.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not even like I'm a procrastinator, but I think it's just with the girls. Like sometimes it's like I can never actually finish something to completion and get that like payoff feeling, that endorphin rush with the girls because a lot of times they just get distracted
Yeah.
or they like interrupt me because they're children and I have to just be like it's okay I can come back but it's like for me I really like finishing something because it does make me feel good
Okay.
um you know yeah
Okay. Do you know what you like to do in the next 10 years?
I don't know you asked me that question at the beginning and like I think what I need to do is to um try some of the things I keep putting off and then see what information I get. Like go and work maybe with Mural Arts or with some other artists where I can like learn from them and then see what happens from that. Because I keep thinking of what I want to do in the next 10 years and I do get really overwhelmed with like all the things I'd like to do. And I think like what you just said, it's like maybe I just need to try one little thing. And I mean, that's me doing the murals. So it's like, I was like, I want to do murals. That's a big thing. How do I do that? So like our church had this like white old Jesus mural that was like so dated. So I was like, can I do a mural over that? Like, I'll just make it my offering to the church. So I made this like nature mural over it. And so then I had a mural. And then because of that, someone saw it and I got a mural at an arboretum. So it was like, and then because I was doing that mural, I went to this bar that I always go to, and I was just they had a big wall, and I'm like, hey, do you guys need a mural? I just asked because
Yeah.
I had the confidence to do that, and I could show them that I'd been, So it's like one thing kind of did, I think, just like showing up and like talking to people, and maybe doing more murals, and maybe getting to work with other artists. But I also would love to help some artists that would never think their work could be a mural
Mm.
or to see it big, and like I could help them make it bigger would be kind of cool, like in our little community in media where I live. So I definitely have some ideas. I am just also living in this space where I have a 5-year-old and an 8-year-old. And I actually am realizing that I need to just enjoy them
Yeah.
because soon they're gonna like, and it's so cheesy and everyone tells me it, and I just want to be like, they'll be like, oh, it's the longest, shortest time, or it goes so fast. Everyone says that stuff, but it's really true. And like, I very much get bored and want to move on to the next thing. But I'm like, I just need to take them to see things and enjoy some things with them, and don't just do that, but like when I'm doing that, like I have the ability and the privilege to like be present with them. Like I don't have to be working, like I have friends that like they have to work like 40, 50 hours a week and still parents, and still, or and they're either like single parents or their spouse is also doing the same thing, and I don't have to do that right now because of my spouse's job, but also it would be hard to do that because his job is all over the place. So
Yeah.
it's kind of nice for me to be available. And I'm annoyed by that a lot, but also like my daughter went to school and didn't have a right coat today, and it was so really cold, and I could like bring her coat.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I will say one of the pieces of advice I gave somebody here that wanted to break into murals, I was like, you have a place of your own. Guess what your house
Yeah.
has? Empty
Yeah.
walls. Just do one in your house as a
Yeah.
proof of concept. And
Well, I
that's
did
what they
one in my
did. Yeah.
bathroom, and like it's
Yeah.
like I did a baby's room because of that. It's like I also just need to probably put up more like advertising, or at least have ways where people can find me. Like I've done a little bit of that, but it's like I think I've relied a lot on Instagram, and that's not really necessarily
Uh,
where people are gonna find me. So
Whenever here, I'm going to throw it. Whenever you're ready to do a website and want to talk website or SEO, please tell me, and I will be happy to help you.
yeah,
Because that's
I have a
literally what I do for a living. So
I have a decent website, but I don't think like people are finding my website.
that's SEO. I can help you with that.
Yeah.
I can run a report on your website and tell you
Okay.
how people are finding your site.
Yeah.
You just have to remind me. Uh,
I
dog,
would love help with that. And I also like don't always ask my husband to help me with things like that. And he's like pretty good with that stuff. But I also have friends that are just like that have all these skills that I like don't
yeah.
always think about. So
Dogwood Arts has started teaching mural classes down here.
oh nice.
They have a new space called the Maker Exchange in one of
Yeah,
the
I went in and
hotels.
saw that. That was
Okay.
cool. Yeah.
So did you see the big moving pieces in the middle that had rollers on them?
Um, I don't remember if I saw those. I
They
saw all the little pieces and
they
then
may have not been in there because I think they take them out of there, but they literally have these big rolling walls that they move in there and you will do a mural.
oh
And
that's
that's it.
cool.
Yeah. And side question, when the girls get a little bit older, will you take them and make them work on your murals with you? Like we're
That
gonna
would be
pick,
really cool. And
yeah,
like I even think about um it's like if I got some, a lot of times that stuff's in the summer if it's outside, or when they're not in school, and it's like I could travel and do some too. I
yeah,
think right now it's like I really think about my community, and like I really love miss Knoxville, and I really miss my community there. And like I also had a really strong community in the military when we
yeah,
were with people, and like people move away and move back, and I wasn't in that world that long, but um I have a pretty good community here, and I don't think we're going to leave here for a while, and like that's the plan. And if we did, we'd probably go back to Knoxville.
yeah,
Um but it's like I would like to cultivate like that for like my community, because like talking about politics stuff earlier, like it's fine on the macro, and like I care about that, but like I also feel like you can control more in your
yeah.
community. So
Well, what made me ask that about the girls is because I was thinking like 10 years, I was like, y'all won't be empty nesters but they'll be old enough to take care of themselves to where you can go and do more
Yeah.
stuff. But then I was like, wait, but maybe bring them along. And because how
Yeah.
many times did my dad and uncles bring me along to help move people or do stuff like that?
Yeah.
And that was great because you got to see a whole different side of your parents. It wasn't just your parent, you were working with them
Yeah.
on
Well, and I
something.
like picked up Lorraine. My last mural was down like a few blocks away between my house and the my daughter's school, and she only goes to school in the mornings right now in preschool, but I would pick her up at noon and I'd already been working that morning, and then she just come and sit, and like a couple of days she like painted on her own little watercolor stuff, and I just kept working for another hour or two, and then sometimes she just watched a show. But like, I mean, I went to work with my dad, or he
Yeah.
was insurance and he would go take pictures of things for like, I
For
guess, insurance
claims, for
purposes and
claims.
claims
Yeah.
and stuff. And I would go with him and take Polaroid pictures for him because that was when it was on Polaroid, because you needed it like right away. Um, but yeah, I hope to bring them more. And I also think like being diagnosed with ADHD and kind of knowing more about it, it makes me just like know more about myself and realize that like sometimes I'm getting frustrated with them, but it's like really not about them. It's more just that like there's just a lot of noise.
Right.
So it's been really helpful for that, to just like know more about something that's like it's not like a bad thing. It's just the more you know, I guess.
The more you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those who are listening will not get to that glory. The more you know. I'll
Yeah,
just
the more you know.
is there a museum or magazine where you'd like to see your work?
Um, there's like two galleries in Philly that I would love to see my work. I know that's not a museum or a magazine, but there's like two galleries that I really like going to see their
Okay.
shows. Um, and I've met the people that own them and have talked to them, but I haven't actually like officially like asked if I could have a show there. And I think that's part of me trying to make some work right now and figure out what I would like to say, because I'm like, I would like to actually put together something in like a packet or a little PDF to kind of show what I'm thinking about and see if there's like one of those places or somewhere else that would take me, or at least let me have a show.
Okay.
It'd be awesome.
Okay. And if you could talk to the 14-year-old version of yourself, what would you tell them?
Trying to think. I feel like I would tell, so is that middle school, I guess? Or
14 is usually freshman
freshman
in high
year.
school. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got that from there's another podcaster named Ryan Sickler, and he asked people, what would you tell the 16-year-old version of yourself? And I was like, no, 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 14, because you went from being top of the mountain in the eighth grade to
Yeah.
right back at the bottom as a freshman. I was like, I
Yeah.
feel like that's a much more pivotal point in your life than 16.
Yeah, I was an older kid, so I would have been in eighth grade because I was older than everybody. But I feel like my experience in middle school was that I feel like it made me really like wary of girls and like female relationships. So when I went into high school, I was mostly friends with boys, but I think I would tell myself that to just like to stick, like, not that I regret hanging out with the boys, but I feel like I didn't really give female relationships this as much of a chance until I was into college. And I feel like, and so I mean, I had friends that were girls, but sometimes I feel like I would just tell myself like whatever their drama is, like it's not about you. Like I just feel like I would just um I think that's what I would tell myself. But I also feel like I would say like keep making art, but like figure out like the I like tell my daughters like figure out the other things you're really into, and
Mm.
like and try to stick with them. Like I get really bored and move on to the next thing too, but also like force yourself sometimes to like work through the boredom and like really get to know like was like learn about like something in history and like really dig in there, because like you're probably going to learn stuff that you didn't really think you'd find if you actually stay with it through like the board parts of it.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
um yeah, I don't know. I Yeah, there's like things I'd want to tell myself, but I also like I'm not really that mad about that part of my life. I feel like I did okay.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a varied responses to that. Some people get emotional and say, keep moving forward kind of thing. Then
Yeah.
others are like, the joke of like buy Apple stock, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Buy buy
No,
app
that's
buy Apple stock.
but no, I think fighting through the boredom is I think and finding different things is very good. Is very
And I
good.
wish I would have kind of gotten over, like, I know this isn't 14, but I think I wish I would have gotten over my fear of like leaving. Like I went 2 hours from my house to go to school. Like I wasn't gonna stay right by where I was from, but I wanted to do that. Like that was
Yeah.
something I wanted to do because also my parents weren't from where I was raised. Um, so I think I would even like tell myself to just like go. Like that I would find a community, like to not worry about it. Because
Yeah.
like that's what's ended up happening. And it's okay, even though it's like it feels like really scary to like leave,
Okay.
start over
All right.
every day. It's always scary.
All right. Well, that's good. Thank you for being on.
No problem. It was fun.